Everybody ready? And I think the snow is stopping. Okay, good. Yay. Well, hello and welcome to Programming the New OVN's Online Video Networks. And welcome to the Prague Room for those of you that have never been to the Czech Republic. This is a taste. So why, when we're developing the panel, why we decided to say OVN, because that's not like sort of a given term, is, you know, MCNs are sort of more morphing, and, you know, a lot of MCNs, which some of these folks started as, or still consider themselves, really morph and do their own content as in addition to repping and, you know, managing YouTube stars. So we kind of like to think of them just like there are niche cable networks that all launched, you know, 20 to 30 years ago. That's what's happening now in many different, you know, in many different ways. So we have a number of these niche verticals represented here today, including fashion, style, sports, food, comedy, entertainment, news. So let's start with introductions. I'm Matt Farber. I'm a veteran video executive, entrepreneur, consultant, depending on the year. I was the digital chief at MTV, founded the Logo Television Network, and over the past 5 years, I've launched 2 online video initiatives and consulted companies in the online video space, including Dailymotion, Big Frame, Yahoo, Livestream, AMC Networks, blah, blah, blah. So let's go and introduce the panel. We'll start with Stephanie.
Sure. Hi, I'm Stephanie Horbaczewski. I'm the founder and CEO of Style Hall. We're the largest style network in the world for online content. We have 5,500 creators in 63 countries, and we do over 1 billion views a month just in video, and have almost 200 million person reach across the social platforms. I think just to touch on his point, I think the reason that MCNs are saying that it no longer fits is because it does no longer fit. Like most businesses, it's been 4 years of evolution, and now we are, for example, a large multi-platform marketing solution for advertisers. We haven't done a simply video campaign in over 2 years. We're also expanding onto other video platforms, other types of video, long form. We even bought our first film. So that's Style Hall.
All right, Warren.
Hi, I'm Oren Katzef. I'm the head of programming and network at Tastemade. We are a global digital food and travel network for millennials. And there's kind of 3 parts of our business. There's our studio, where we do a lot of our original programming, both in our 7,000 square foot soundstage in LA. So if you're in LA and you want to kind of see a cool operation and how it all works, please let me know. Be happy to give you a tour. And then we film and create content all over the world. We also have a network of over 1,000 creators who we've handpicked and curated and who we work with to create content, both in-house and with third parties and brands. And then we have the platform side of our business, or our technology. We have an app, which today is very much like Yelp for video. All over the world, people are creating what we call restaurant raves. Not reviews, people who are celebrating places that they love. And the app gives you a storyboard and makes it very easy for you to be the star of your own minute-long show, where today it's very restaurant focused, but we are expanding to be anything that you have a taste for. And that's really the notion of Tastemade, is it wasn't intended to only be for food, it was to be for anything that you have a taste for: travel, hotels, parks, shops, anything. And that app allows you to capture moments in life that you love and share it with the world.
Mr. McCabe.
Cool. J.R. McCabe. I lead video for the Time Inc. Group. We own 25 brands in the U.S., more than 50 globally. Some of the brands you may know: Time, Sports Illustrated, Fortune, Money, People. And our content creative group develops, creates, distributes content, short, long form, across all platforms, network television to short form content online every day. And our whole mission is to create more engagement with our consumers. We've recently passed more than 100 million digital consumers for the first time. We now have more digital consumers than we do print, which is a little bit of a paradigm shift for Time Inc. And part of that is, again, engaging and leading conversations for them, regardless of length of content. And then, of course, finding a way to monetize that on the back end. So that's my strategy that I lead for Time Inc.
Hi, my name is Brian Beadall. We have a company called Bedrocket Media Ventures, and Bedrocket actually operates a variety of media verticals. Right now, most of what we're doing focused on is in sports. We have a partnership with the PGA Tour. We have the largest action and extreme sports network in North America. And we have a partnership with Univision, a brand called Flama. and a range of other partners and affiliates we work with. Our approach is we actually have built a video technology solution that allows independent video verticals to operate efficiently, as well as participate in best practices as it relates to monetization, management of the video content, distribution, marketing, recognizing that as the industry has made the paradigm shift from delivery over cable and satellite to delivery over internet and mobile and now other devices, that efficiency is really critical to profitability, that one needs to be able to manage the process in a way that not only accesses revenue streams, but also is inexpensive and easy to operate.
So let's start with the question, as niche networks, that are focused on certain verticals, in the cable world, for a while, brand was everything, right? But now the question is Real Housewives a bigger brand than Bravo? At what point, and in an online, on-demand video world, what is the brand? So Stephanie, is Style Hall is a more important consumer brand than iJustine and Zoella? Brian, where does Network A fit in with Alana the Surfer Girl? How do you guys think of brands, Stephanie?
Well, I would never say we're more important. I think we do totally different things. Our creators have tremendous brands and tremendous reach. Style Hall is really more about a community, and it's about scale. We do huge multi-platform campaigns. I'm talking about 700 videos and thousands of pieces of social content. So much larger than any individual creator could ever do with a brand like L'Oreal. So as far as being consumer facing, that's sort of one of the tasks we're taking on this year. It's the first time we've really stepped out and done, as I said, we bought our first movie, we sold our first television format, we're putting out our first scripted series. So we're doing a bunch of things in the content space with our brand name, but that hasn't been our focus up until now as much so. And I think to your point, it needs to be. I was actually just over at Vice having the same conversation. And he said to me, well, what brands do you think have usurped HBO? And I said, I don't. And he said to me, well, I think Game of Thrones maybe. I said, okay, but we're talking about maybe one. And that's sort of how I see our partnership with our creators. They make brilliant content and they're part of our community. And we make brilliant content that's totally different than theirs. And I think it's really much more of a partnership than
so a lot of the creator videos, sort of in there, you can see powered by Style Hall or a Style Hall channel or Style Hall network. And that's how I think I've seen it historically. So is there going to be kind of both, somebody, a channel or talent that's sort of associated with Style Hall and then a Style Hall entity in of itself that's consumer facing? Definitely.
We have a consumer facing brand right now. So, we do a lot of events. We do something at Coachella. We do something at all the red carpets. And Style Hall is a very consumer-facing brand as it is right now. We were co-branded in the window of every Banana Republic store last year during the Oscars. So Style Hall is a consumer-facing brand. But, do I feel the need to put our brand all over every one of our creators? Certainly not. Nor would I think that they would feel the need to have us put them all over our brand. We're partners. It depends on the project. It depends on what we're doing. I think there's a lot of opportunity for both of us to promote each other. And I think, all of them would agree. Brands have their own places and there's a certain time and place for that partnership and a certain time and place to stand alone.
Brian, how do you see the packaging, whether it's Network A or Flama, as a B2B brand or as a B2C brand or a little bit of both?
I think it shifts over time. And I think right now it's more important the overarching brands as B2B brands and as B2C brands. I think in a VOD world that viewers watch individual shows or individual stars. And I think that as aggregators of those, we facilitate their exposure to an audience and help fund them and help make people aware of their availability. But I sort of think about the shift over time. And I remember when I was first getting into television many years ago, had a conversation with Brandon Tartikoff, who was sort of the legendary NBC programmer who, at the time we had just launched MTV and I had just gone to work there, and Brandon was talking about how media brands don't matter, that it was all about the show and that was what the broadcasters understood, and that the investment that places like MTV were making in brand was wasted. And what in the case
and Netflix for, not in this category. So the question for the panel is, how important is it to have your own platform? Do you see it as important, or does it still make sense to obviously work with YouTube or any of the other platforms like Vimeo, Yahoo, AOL? So JR, you recently launched, the Daily Cut, and I'm guessing that is your own. Some of that is on your own player, and not necessarily a YouTube, initiative. So, your thoughts first as far as
Sure.
YouTube versus your own O&O platform.
Now, I'll tie this into what Stephanie and Brian said, and I'll answer your question. I think brands are tremendous launch pads. If you can, if you don't have them, you don't have them. I think the difficulty in today's business is building a brand is very hard. And there's so much out there, right? There's a great deal of fragmentation. So I'm really proud to have the brands we have. I think it helps us break through the clutter, but to Brian's point, and to Stephanie's about the creators that come out, it's about the content and the storytelling. I think we have a little bit of a leg up in certain areas, in certain regards, because we have a trust, as you said, that people have with the brands. But, not a lot of people coming looking for people video. They want to know what the stories are that people tells. They want to know about what's happening inside that brand. So it gives us an ability to launch things. Direct answer to your question about the Daily Cut. The Daily Cut was built not to be a new brand, but to be an experience that turned into a brand. The idea, it was all about how the consumers consume. It's very simple. If anyone has used it, thank you. If not, please get it. It's available in the iTunes store, or you can go to it on the desktop version. The idea of the Daily Cut was very simple. To build an experience, we brought the best content from our brands to life, not by brand, but by vertical, right? We verticalized the experiences because, to your point, Brian, folks aren't coming in looking just for the brands, looking for content they care about in a relevant space that they want to consume. So it's built very quickly by featured or editorially recommended content, the newest in reverse chronology, most recent first, or trending, what's the most popular over the last 7 days. It's got a live module. You're able to share your content and personalize your playlist if you choose. If you don't want to log in, come in anonymously and do it. And so in that regard, that experience will be ubiquitous across all of our brands at some time in the near future. And it'll also be available on every platform that we have access to. Yes, there's a YouTube channel about it. I believe YouTube is a huge, monstrous megaphone that we should all be using and embracing, as we should other platforms socially like Facebook and Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and others. I think it's incredibly important that we use the influencers that want to participate with us to help us content create as well. I think just pushing down ideas went away a long time ago, and we need to listen to the consumers, and so using those platforms is incredibly important.
So, Warren, a lot of the longer form videos that you guys have seem to be, YouTube largely distributed, but clearly you've developed your app, which is its own platform. So where do you see YouTube versus your own platform initiatives?
Yeah, I think the way we viewed it is, number one, the data is very telling, and now there's enough data across all platforms to see how people engage in content, how long they stick with it, what kind of topics they like, what your demo is on Facebook versus YouTube. I think the overarching question is, YouTube today is still where I think the largest percentage of a lot of people's audiences are, including ours. It doesn't mean that we focus all of our attention on YouTube. And to your point, when we launched our app about 1.5 years ago, the idea was that this is its own platform. All the videos live on the app, and you can share them across all social platforms. From an original content standpoint, though, we do look at each platform individually. We do, as you said, we do have 8 to 10 minute episodes, let's say, on YouTube, but then we experiment across different platforms. So the way that our consumers ingest and view our video on YouTube is different than it is on Facebook, and it's different than it is on Roku, and it's going to be different than it is on Vessel. And so just as an example, there was an episode recently of a show we did called The Grill Iron, which is about college football tailgating, where we went to 12 different college football schools and brought in local chefs at each school, excuse me, and had them create a tailgate-inspired dish at each school. So from Ohio State to Florida State to Penn State to Florida. And at the end of the year, we brought the top chefs to LA and had them kind of duel it out at the same time that the college football tournament was happening. There was a particular episode we launched on YouTube that was about 8 or 9 minutes that did about 500,000 views or so. And what we did just to experiment is we took a subsection of that episode, and it was just about bacon. Part of the episode was about going to a farm and just learning about this guy who did amazing things with bacon. And we took a 3.5-minute section, kind of edited it a bit and put it up on Facebook, and it did another 700,000 views just on Facebook over 48 hours. That's just a snapshot of how we think about the different platforms and how we think about content. Doesn't mean that all content on Facebook has to be 3 minutes and all content on YouTube needs to be 8 minutes. But the data there showed us that the 8 or 9 minute show on YouTube had an engagement rate of over 80%. So on average, people were watching up to 80% of the episode, which is pretty good for a 9-minute episode. And on Facebook, it was equal to that across the 3.5 minutes. So long story short, what from our standpoint, we truly believe that the way that people consume our content across all platforms is very unique and different, and it's important to think about how you program the different platforms differently. And to agree with what was said here.
Oh, come on,
disagree is much more fun.
It's too early to
I mean,
disagree.
that
I've got
format
the over-under for disagreeing is 2:45, so we have 12 more minutes. To agree with what was said here, whether that's Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, you've got to think about all those platforms because there are tons and tons of consumers on all of those.
So I guess what, I would maybe amend what's being said. I'm not sure whether I agree or disagree, but amend it by saying that, this is why we actually built our platform, because it's a much more complex, complicated world out there. And there are 6 or 7 platforms that are relevant, as well as your own. There's all sorts of individuals and technology that work into a workflow. And what we said was, this is a big problem, and if you're just operating 1 or 2 verticals, it's a really expensive problem. If you need to do all of this stuff manually, and you need to have individuals that are figuring out how to transcode for what platform at what time, and how it's performing on Facebook or how it's performing on YouTube. And so we went out and searched for a solution and discovered that a solution didn't exist. And that's the only reason that we created the platform that we did, was because a solution didn't exist. And we said, what if one could load into a CMS once and from a single dashboard transcode and determine whether a video gets distributed to YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and be able to cut it and optimize it within, and at the same time be able to access analytics that go across all the platforms and sort of optimize what, and you could do it, but it would take 6 or 7 people and then the technology to support all of these things. We said, maybe if we were to invest in this platform, it would be really good for us. And if it's good for us, maybe we can share some of the cost of it with partners and ultimately clients. And so our approach to platform hasn't been, let's find a substitute for YouTube and Facebook or doing it yourself. It's, let's find a way to automate the process, and let's actually recognize that it's a really complex world out there. And if you can automate complexity, or at least with a level of the complexity to allow the investment to focus on creating great programming and reaching audience as opposed to the technology infrastructure, then maybe there's a little bit of an advantage there. So that's what the way we've approached technology.
I'm just going to jump in here. Let's just think about this question, and we got 3 different answers. We have people comparing YouTube to their own platform, then we have people comparing YouTube to social platforms, and then we have people comparing YouTube to different video platforms. Those are all totally different things, right? So I think part of the problem is that we can't even establish what we're talking about YouTube as. Is it just a social video platform, or are we talking about it as a video consumption platform? Even in their answers, we don't have the same thing. And we haven't even gotten to what's most important here yet, which is they're the number 2 largest search engine in the world, right? And they're owned by the number 1 largest search engine in the world, which means they're the best way to find discovery. They're also the most engaged platform on the planet for video. You can get meaningless scale anywhere, guys. We all know now that that is just exactly what it sounds like, meaningless scale. Likes, shares, favorites, comments. You don't care about whether or not nobody watched your video or it just ran on a computer. You care about whether people consumed it. You care about whether they thought about it. You care about whether they commented on it and they talked about it with other people. And the bottom line is YouTube dominates across all of those categories. So I think when we look at this question, there's a lot more defining that we need to do about what we're talking about when we answer it, which is what we're all doing every day in our jobs. And then we have to look at what is the value prop that we're looking to solve for whoever our partner is in that case. Is it the viewer, to your point about whether or not the experience is good enough? Is it our company, ourselves, and our monetization? Or is it just to sheer scale and whether or not we're getting our brand out there?
I disagree.
Let's do this.
What time is it?
I actually
Let's do it.
seriously do this. I think that.
Go. I'm going to stand back. Go ahead.
I think that YouTube is a great platform for certain kinds of programming.
I agree.
I think that other platforms are better, and I think that part of the challenge and the opportunity is to recognize what kinds of programming does well on different kinds of platforms. In many cases, YouTube is a CDN with a rebate. It's a really good way to serve something. 90% of YouTube's views come off of YouTube. There's a small audience, relatively small global audience, that goes to YouTube to say what's on. It's generally, it's a growing audience, but in general, I don't know, how many people in this room on a daily basis go to YouTube to see what's on? Out of the billions of views at YouTube. Now, on the other hand, if we were in a room filled with 16-year-old gamers or 20-year-old fashion.
So you don't disagree with me because you're redefining what we're saying. That's what I said.
No.
We're not talking about right. We're talking about YouTube
disagree
video,
that-
guys. We're talking about TV shows. I don't think anyone in this room is talking about TV shows, right? So if you're talking about which platform is better for which type of content, that's, wait for it, yet another conversation, right? So when you ask the question about where we're supposed to be, we have to define what we're even talking about before we can answer the question.
So I guess I agree.
Okay.
Look at that.
There you go.
That was easy.
Questions at the end, if that's okay. Well, let me move on. I mean, I think Stephanie reframed it, in an interesting way. But what I'm hearing, and I think what we're hearing, is that sometimes, the platform has to fit what the content is and what the experience is. At the same, and YouTube, it might be good for one type of thing. Having said that, YouTube is still an 800-pound gorilla that is the second largest search engine. Through recommendations, related videos, they can still help amplify something that's successful. There hasn't been as much of a viral Vimeo video yet, or a viral video that happened on somebody's O&O platform the way YouTube viral videos happen. But, every platform potentially matters. Okay, let's move and talk about, as Stephanie was saying, we are not talking about television shows here. We're talking about things created exclusively. And what is a television show? Let's call it, what we've been talking about is more short form video, something that isn't of a defined length, that and something that's delivered over the internet. Yet it seems like a lot of the folks on this panel are also adopting a studio model, developing IP that can be monetized across other media. You mentioned that, Style Hall is in the window of a store, and live events or television. So I guess the question is, if we're all native to digital online platforms, do we see television live events as ancillary to your online video networks, or as the ultimate holy grail in and of themselves? Whoever wants to take a stab. Stephanie?
I'm happy to. For starters, TV is a physical device, right? So let's get off calling this television content. It's long form content. It's SVOD. It's all the things you do. When you turn on your TV, you see the word YouTube on it, right? So you can watch any content there. So to his point, it's about what's the best platform for that content, or what you're using it for discovery. For us, I think, the only on-demand content that there is out there right now is sports events. And so I'm sure there's some opinions there, and award shows, right? Other than that, you can basically get what you want anywhere you want, and the 30-second spot can be gone from that content. So in our case, live events is extremely important because it's a great way to connect with our audiences, and it's also a great way to drive an on-demand payment from a brand for what you're doing. And that's one of the reasons you see the Super Bowl spots where they are. So I think it's really important. I think it's a touch point, and I think it's a different monetary system you can be working with. But I don't, it's totally different business for us. When we're talking about content online, it's very different.
Yeah, I think what Tastemaker would just add to that is, I wouldn't necessarily view TV and we can define, I know what you mean by TV. You're not just talking about turning the remote control on and whatever pops up. You're saying, like, does Tastemade want to show on the cooking channel?
Yeah, something that exists as a linear scheduled entity, even though it may exist on demand. Something that's...
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for us, and not to just go back to
something where there, at least today, is a clear ecosystem for how things work. Whether it's changing or not, there still is a 30-second spot.
But does that even exist? Kimmel has his content online by the end of his Eastern broadcast, which means on the West Coast you can get it. So does it even exist?
We're not talking about that. We're talking.
I feel like we're in a courtroom. Like I get, like, honestly, like, this is going back to my law school days. And right, and you left law, so did I. So let's not go back.
But okay.
No, but I think we have to. I think we have to.
Help define. So go ahead. Go.
Make something up.
Go ahead.
Totally hypothetically, would Tastemade want a show like Day of Gluttony to be on? We have a show called Day of Gluttony. It's two guys, and they go from city to city, and they have 24 hours to eat at 24 different restaurants. And it kicks off in San Francisco. I think episode 2 is in Chicago. It's awesome. It's fun. They're great guys. Would we want that show on the Travel Channel, for example? Right. That is ultimately the question. And our answer is absolutely. Is that what we make the show for? No, but it is another distribution platform like YouTube, like Facebook, with a unique audience set, with the unique viewing habits, with potential monetary implications to it. And so when we produce a show like Day of Gluttony, it's got a life on YouTube, it's got a life on Facebook, it's got a life on a lot of platforms. And on top of that, it has a life on TV, which we hope it does, because again, it's another distribution channel with monetization. That's great. That's awesome for the creators. It's great for the Tastemade brand, and we think it's great for the audience that watches it on TV.
Any other thought? I mean, JR, you're just starting out. If anything, you're going from a print to something.
I want to let Stephanie and Oren keep going, because it's all good. But I think what Stephanie said is actually, I'm agreeing with it. We need to redefine what it is we're talking about. But to Oren's point, I don't think there's any one of us who wouldn't want a specific product on linear or cable or any platform we can expand our reach. I will say that we have a brand called Swim, swimsuit inside the Sports Illustrated brand, and we look at it as it is content, but it is not everything for everybody, meaning we just did 5 one-hour specials across Travel Channel for Beach Week, right? So we did 5 primetime hours. That is not the same content we're going to put on YouTube. That is not the same content we're going to put on our site, right? We think about it differently, but we use different story arcs. There are different producers that do it. But yeah, would we like to do it? We did the People Magazine Awards on NBC this past fall, right? We shot that out in LA at the Beverly Hilton. We were live. That is not a show we're going to just take and throw it on YouTube. It's not the way we do it. So yes, I want any linear channel I can have. We think about it differently for experiences and consumption, and we look at the different platforms for what we're creating. But I'll take every network, broadcast, cable distribution outlet I can find in addition to what I'm doing digitally, and be happy to do it all day long.
You know, different audiences consume at different times in different ways on different platforms. And, you know, I think that a good example of a recent experience with us is, you know, as I mentioned, we launched a partnership with a PGA Tour. The goal is to create a media property that reaches the next generation of golfers that effectively the world has given up on, has figured that, you know, if you're under 35 or 40, you have no interest in golf. And if you look at the ratings on television, it sort of, you know, it confirms that. Yet if you look at data, there are, you know, millions of you know, we've avoided the M word so far, so I'm not going to use it, but millions of those people under 35 who actually are into golf and play it and care about it, but they don't sort of consider themselves, you know, passionate, dedicated fans who are going to go, you know, watch a 4-hour tournament, any more so than when MTV said we were in the music business. And, you know, nobody said, oh, let's do 2-hour symphonies, because if kids are into music, they're going to watch this. They were watching music videos. We just did an experiment a couple of weeks ago with Snapchat Story, as a lot did. We actually had more viewers, or there were more viewers of golf that weekend on Snapchat than on live television. And the fact is that audiences, we've had tremendous, even though we're in early beta, have had tremendous success in delivering short form stories related to golf across Facebook, across Twitter, across YouTube, to audiences that would never dream of going and sitting on their couch on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon watching a tournament. So I think that if you're looking to build brands, and you're looking to reach audiences, whatever the content segment is, you need to understand how that audience prefers to consume, because we're way past the time where you're going to be able to get an audience to come to you. You need to go to where they are. The more you think about destinations, the quicker you are to fail, because if you invest your time in trying to get people to go to you, there are 100 other things they'd rather do. If you find a way to get to them at the point where they're interested in consuming, and what you have is something they're interested in, there's a chance that you're going to connect.
Let's move on to a topic that hopefully doesn't require as many definitions: TV, online, long form, short form, platform, and that's about talent. Ultimately, what we can all agree on is, in a world where there isn't just 25 channels and talent and, the distribution or financial barriers, talent potentially has a little bit more clout. And so, there was, and maybe still is, over the past years, a lot of, talent jumping back in the MCN days, from MCN to MCN, who gave an advance, who gave, better CPMs. So what are the mechanisms, you each work with, talent, what are the mechanisms in a world where you keep your talent that's in high demand? What are the things that you need to be doing, that you are doing, that you're offering? Stephanie, you've been at this the longest of the group in terms of working with, native digital talent.
I mean, I think, everybody wants to see that like IP format grow and be able to extend it. And, we recently sold to RTL, and we're looking a lot at how do you take television formats and extend them internationally, which is a really great revenue source. But talent is talent. They have managers, they have agents. I mean, it's kind of, think of us more like a studio. We sit in the middle and we put together all these parties. Right now we're financing 3 shows for some of our channels. We're looking at a bunch of different ways to work with them, but we're not a management company. Flat out, we say it from the beginning and we stand by that. We are not a management company. They have managers and we work with them. The talent's extremely valuable, but they also have a shelf life on the YouTube platform, unfortunately. So one thing we're looking at now is how do we extend that shelf life? What are the other ways you can work with them? And 2, whether or not I want my formats distributed. Yes, format distribution anywhere, of course. I put my content anywhere, people will watch it. But the bottom line is the television community is not going to watch the content that we're producing on YouTube. It's a totally different audience. It's people my age and up. And I just set someone up for college, and he wanted a 55-inch screen and for television screen, and he wanted internet service, and he did not want cable. So he was not going to consume any of the content that I'm making in the way that we are with the television stations. We're making a completely different format with the TV stations than we are with what we're doing now. And some of it has talent in it and some of it doesn't. We were talking actually about one of our creators that we're both working on something with. Some of them have the ability to translate and some of them don't. Some of them are hosts, some of them are actors, some of them are producers, and some of them are video social networkers. And those are all totally different things. So, identifying what the talent is and where they can maximize their value. Can they turn into a brand? Can they be Bethany Moda and turn into a $20 million clothing line? Yeah, some of them can. Not all of them. Can they be cooking shows that go to television? Sure. But again, not all of them. So I think it's the same thing I keep saying over and over again. And these panels you can get burned on. And that's why I'm saying we need to define what we're talking about, because I've seen articles written where I'm answering one question and someone else is answering another one. And the article makes it look like we're answering the same question. The definitions actually do matter. So even though I would agree with you, talent is the same, like what their strengths are and what we do with them it's totally different. And it's not a one size fit all format for any of us.
Having said that, with talent, it's important, whether we're in business with the talent to do something for, let's call it a definition, a television show on E versus a branded sponsor video for L'Oreal versus hosting a live event somewhere. We're still reliant on talent, and they have managers, they have agents, they have MCNs, they have lawyers, they have themselves. So I guess the question, Stephanie, you can continue, and then Oren, who's getting
we just did a program for one of the television stations, and we created the online program to promote their show. Their show premiered. It was the #1 premiering show on their network for the last 3 years. So I know where my place is, and I know what we're really good at. And the format we're working on for television actually it's not about one creator. It's actually about helping. It's for basically their moms, if you want to think about it that way. Like, how are their moms understanding what all this is? Because you don't know how many times I get asked, I don't even get what you do. And I'm like, right. And we reached like 70 million people and unique users every month. I mean, we're impacting more people than you can even imagine. So it makes sense that there would be a format on linear TV that would be for them. So again, talent fits into those 3 places in completely different ways, right? And into a brand project like we do. So what we do with brands is they're in 3% of the conversation on YouTube. That's not impressive, right? And they know it, and they want to be in more. And so what we do is we create marketing campaigns that are organic ways to integrate brands. L'Oreal is a pioneer of the digital space, and we've done amazing things with them for the last few years, and it just keeps getting better, and they're breaking barriers every single day. But it's using 40 creators and hundreds on other social platforms to get that message out, because where brands can't play currently at scale is on social platforms. The best ad unit I've seen is actually on Snapchat. It's a swiping unit. It's the best one I've seen. The rest of them, it's pretty mediocre. So where does talent fall into that? Well, there was no campaign without the talent guys. They're creating all of that content. They're engaging in the conversation, but that's totally different than creating a clothing brand for them.
Warren and Brian, how do the talent that you're in business with, and again, some of your business is not dependent on talent, but some of it is. Besides having them under contract, how do you keep them happy and content? What are the things that you found are the levers? Obviously, you're making them money, but knowing that there's a lot of competition in places where they can go, how do you keep them content? What do you think is the secret?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think with Tastemade, there's parts of our model that are the same as described. Some of it that's different. I'll just take the grill iron example to just illustrate how we've worked with talent in the past. And so for us, there is a network part of our business where we do have hundreds of creators that have YouTube channels that roll up underneath the Tastemade network, and then we have hundreds of creators on our app as well. So from a programming standpoint, this studio in our pocket almost becomes like my little mini American Idol, and people who are creating content are people who I can see, and if they're good on camera, I can say, wow, this person would be great on a show that we're working on. And with Tastemade, a lot of what we do is shows. A lot of what we do is we create great, engaging, standalone content, and we work with brands and integrate the brand themes and initiatives in an organic and authentic way. That's what we did with the grill iron. It was sponsored by Hyundai, and the host of that show was somebody who we discovered on the app. And then we had an app-related event, and I met her there and started talking to her about this opportunity. And at the time, we were just in discussions with Hyundai, and I just envisioned her as a great host for the show. She was into it, and that's kind of how we made a deal. So we discovered her through our app. You then do, to your point, you have an issue of how do you secure talent, and how do you ensure that as the show grows and as their career grows through working with Tastemade, how do you ensure that you work together? And that's challenging. That's the multi-million-dollar question. I don't sit here saying that we have a great answer. We have some of an answer that is in a confidential contract. What I would say beyond that, though, is that prior to Tastemade, I used to run what was at the time a very small comedy site called Cracked. I don't know if everyone remembers Cracked magazine as a kid. I took it over when it was 200,000 uniques and grew it to over 20 million uniques a month. And we had the same issue. We were working with a lot of talent that would do shows with Cracked and then go on and get gigs at Saturday Night Live or in Comedy Central and not work with Cracked. And from my standpoint, that was actually great for everybody because they kind of kicked their career off with us. They went on and they were grateful for what we did, and they talked about us, and when there was press about them, there was press about Cracked. And so we kind of rode along for that ride, and that helped us get more up and coming talent. And so that's a part of it. There's, when we work with folks and when we get them in shows, we don't just get them paid, but we get them in stuff that they're passionate about and stuff that they love to share and in stuff that ultimately helps them advance their career. And I do think that kind of ties back into what we talked about earlier with brand. Part of why Hyundai wanted to work with us is that they love the Tastemade brand and the aesthetic of our content and what that stands for. It doesn't mean that all consumers watch Tastemade content because they love Tastemade, but the ones who know what we do and the ones who watch several of our shows, I think part of why they do is that they know what they get when they watch Tastemade content. They know that there's a certain look and feel and a voice and a style and an aesthetic and a personality that just jives with them. And that's what we tried to do with Dave Gluttony. That's what we tried to do with Grill Iron. So what we tried to do with the show called Local Flight that we did with Grey Goose. And there's our host there is the guy, Sean Thomas, who we also discovered on our app. So I'm kind of giving a long-winded answer, but the short answer is that we have several discovery methods for getting talent onto shows, and we do shows. That's a big part of what Tastemade does with brands. And beyond that, as the talent grows, we like to be there with them. If they go off and they do something big on their own, we typically go along for part of that ride. It's not just Tastemade's just left in the dust, because there's a relationship that we've built and there's a foundation that we've built from day one, from step one, all the way to where they go after the show that we create with them.
Got it. there are many different production models, assuming that your entities are the producers as opposed to, somebody doing their own YouTube channel. And some of you have your own studio locations. Some of you commission and get stuff delivered third party, fully produced. So JR, People Now is produced in-house.
Mm-hmm.
How do you differ? And I know, you're still launching and rolling out what you're doing, but how do you see the different production models and what works for you? What are the pros and cons of different production models?
Yeah, I mean, it's the age-old question about buy versus build. And so the People Now show, which is our morning celebrity show that we do live on our digital platforms, we produce in-house. I think what we have to do, Matt, to answer your question, is we look at efficiencies, but we can't, change quality. We have a creative excellence initiative. Everything we do is network standards and practices, right? The old school network standards and practices, everything HD. It's not because we're making it for TV. It's that we know we have a quality standard regardless of length of content. In this case, we can produce something in-house. We can produce a show that you could see on a television station, but it's produced for digital, meaning it's produced with structured data. It's produced with social influence. It's produced with that mindset, but it's quality enough you could watch. But we're able to do it for pennies on the dollar of what the old studio model used to be, because we're not trying to be an old-time studio. We're trying to be a new creative arm of a company that was traditionally media. So for us, we do a lot internally, but we also work on co-productions and third parties, because at the end of the day, whether it's talent mining or ideation, we don't have all the answers. And one of the things that I'm really proud of that we've done at Time Inc. in the last 2 years is we've opened up our doors and said, yes, we want a social leader who's going to be talent for us in a project. We want a co-production with someone who's got a better idea than we do. We're not just taking magazines. I look at these as brands. These are not magazines. We have a brand portfolio from which we're going to try to grow content. For us, it does make sense to do a lot of things internally because of the fact our brands need to be moment by moment, day by day, hour by hour. We have a conversation. The Time brand needs to be in a daily conversation, unfortunately, about ISIS or what's happening in the Middle East. The SI brand needs to be in a conversation about where LeBron James is going to play, and so on, right? So we need to have the ability to quick turn things in a very cost-effective model. So for us, we do a lot internally, but we also do co-productions outside.
Brian, the videos, video content that's on Network A, for example, how is that stuff that's delivered, people with their own production delivering content and their own YouTube show, or is it, stuff that you commission or, and have a third party produce to your specs, or is it, stuff that you create and produce in-house with your own in-house production team, or is it a mix, and how do you see the different models?
Yeah, it's a mix, and I think it depends on a variety of factors. One is high quality production is very expensive, and unless you have a good monetization model, you can't necessarily produce enough yourself to keep the shelves full. And there are a lot of others who are looking for distribution, and if you can help bring eyeballs to someone else's production and it meets your quality standards, it's it's really, I think, the age-old media model that just has been updated. I think that one of the areas that, at least in video, has been a valuable area for us, and again sort of built into our platform approach, is curation. It's something that in the past, in traditional television was considered, barter syndication, and in text and image, it's what platforms or what properties like Huffington Post and BuzzFeed and others were built on before they began to do their own original creation, was building communities of common interest around content that others would make available and want eyeballs, basically want to attract people to read or to view. And so we think it's a combination of curation, of original production, of third party, of licensing. But what's important is it needs to be suitable for the audience you're trying to reach, in the voice that you're trying to reach it. So, basically, we are the editors, if you will, for the various audiences in our verticals, and determine what is the best way to get the best programming at the most efficient, I shouldn't say efficient cost, because some of the stuff we do is crazy expensive for the revenues it brings in, but it helps build what we're trying to build. So it's a combination of all of them.
So moving on from, there's a piece of some of the folks' businesses here that is traditional MCM and that you are the rep or the service provider for existing YouTube channels. Let's put that on the side. And for the stuff that is created under our own brands or under a studio model that we create and look to monetize, some of you have said, okay, well, not only are we going to be producing this content and monetizing, but we're creating our own platforms with social media networks. We're using our own we create our own content management platform. How do you decide what product offerings and what features and functionalities to focus on when all of this matters? How do you manage still, your startup entities and whatever you're doing? How do you manage to make those decisions of what to focus on? I'll let anyone take a stab at this here.
I'll speak for the folks at Time Inc. We're in the business of content creation, right? So I'm not in this business long term if I can't monetize it in some way. That said, to Brian's point, we need to invest and spend, and there are table stakes involved in that. And those table stakes vary by business, no question about it. But for us, we need to make sure we tell great stories with a path to revenue. I don't mind if that path has a little longer term return, but at some point at the end of the day, to be honest with everybody, if I'm not in the business of content creation, I'm out of business. So for me, it's the end game has got to be great creative content and the platform that matters, but a way I can monetize.
So Brian, you built Boxspring as it's a proprietary publishing platform. Was this what was behind that decision?
Well, it didn't exist. I mean, it was one of these things where we said, for the amount of money we're going to put into our own platform, we can continue to do it manually and cobble together technologies over the next several years, at which point we'll just have to continue down the same path. And so it was really sort of driven by the fact that it was something that we felt was necessary for our own businesses to succeed. And if it was valuable for us, we thought it would be valuable for others, and we could help share the investment or diversify the investment by bringing others onto the platform, which has been the case. It's a little bit similar to one of my prior businesses. I had a college sports media company, and we operated about 350 college websites, sports websites, and it was all on a common platform. And we got into the business. Almost all of the sites had been operated independently, and they would build the same features and functionality over again. And Notre Dame would do the same thing as Ohio State would do, as USC would do, and then they look at each other. What Ohio State just did. And we realized that if we could build a platform where all of these features and functionality that were common across almost everyone in our network were available, then people could invest less in infrastructure and more in content and audience. And so ultimately the driver for us was saying, is there a model like that today where we can make one big investment in infrastructure, but over time have a lot more resources to invest in content and audience? And that was really the driver for us.
That makes sense. Oren, Tastemade is a perfect example. Your app, you could argue, is even though it's video centric, it's more like a local social network around taste, right? So you guys have made the decision to say, okay, let's be in a social network business in and of ourselves. What was behind that decision?
Yeah, it tied to the DNA of the company when it was founded, which is we want to connect the world through food. And as I said, we've since expanded that because our programming is now expanded beyond food to include travel and lifestyle. And so now we say we want to connect the world through video. But really the idea is when you look at the different parts of our business, from a studio standpoint, the original programming we create really does connect the world through food and travel, through the experiences of our hosts and the shows that we do. From a network standpoint, the creators that we work with and that roll up underneath the Tastemade umbrella, they're creating content every day, and it's compelling and it's fun and it's engaging, and they all have their passionate, rabid audiences. And so on a daily basis, either hand in hand with us or independently, they are connecting the world through food and through their experiences. And the app, the idea was that a modern day media company should not just embrace technology, but really use technology to scale content in a high quality way. And we said in the same way that Instagram makes you a better photographer, our app makes you a better videographer, because you do get a storyboard. We do kind of coach you along the way. Because if we told anyone in this room, go do a minute-long video on your favorite restaurant, I think you're all very talented just by looking at you without even talking to you. But you would probably ramble for a little bit if you didn't have any parameters, right? You'd go outside and you'd find a place and you'd probably, you know, kind of mess up a little bit, but keep going. And it would probably, for other than maybe your family and close friends, be close to a video that not a lot of people would want to watch. But it would still, you know, it would be okay. So, but what we've tried to do is create an app and technology that really allows you to create high quality video that you can share with the world, not just about your passion, but also have it be something that's engaging and very watchable and fun. And so really that kind of ties in again to the company DNA, which is this truly is connecting the world through food, because every day on a daily basis, we wake up in the morning and there are tons of videos created from everywhere, from the UK to Hong Kong to Japan to Brazil to LA. I mean, everywhere people are creating videos, again, about restaurants in large part, but it is now expanded to include recipes, hotels, vacations, really all these great, precious moments that people want to share. They're using the app to do it. And the other thing that this just ties to is that we wanted to have that. We wanted to have the conversation happen on a Tastemade platform. We wanted people to friend each other and chat about their likes and the things that they're driven by, the foods that they love. And so the app provides that great experience because you can like someone's video, you can comment on it, you can recommend it to a friend, you can build a travel itinerary for yourself now too. So you can, if you know you're going to Vegas next week, you can go into the Las Vegas section, choose 3 restaurants that you definitely want to go to and just mark them. And when you're in Vegas, you have a different section of the app that says, here's the places you marked. Now you can go and you can share it with a friend or have a friend tag along. So it really was about doing what we set out to do across our entire business, which is connecting the world through video.
Well, getting back to what this panel was entitled, which is sort of like the niche MCNs or niche video networks. And it's interesting, you know, what's come out here is Oren said, well, we start as food, but it's, you know, it's food and travel and anything that's taste. Brian, you know, said to me, before the panel, yeah, we're doing, you know, we've done sports and comedy and news, but we're moving towards, you know, focusing a lot of our energies on sports. And Stephanie, you know, Style Hall, style is in the name of the company. So I guess the question is is niche a benefit, a vertical a benefit, or is it something that, well, we really don't want to pigeon ourselves into one vertical? Stephanie, you know, Style?
I mean, no, we're an inch wide and a mile deep. We have 5,000 people doing over 1 billion views just in video and style. No, I am very happy being very niche. We answer very specific needs for very specific brands. We've had to, you know, to answer the last question in part, we're a scrappy startup. We have to go where the business goes. So you know, as Time said, this is a company, you got to make money, right? So where is our product gone? We're doing something that no one else in the world can do. And so our product went to continuing to build out what no one else in the world can do and to supporting that for our brand advertisers. My creators are growing up, they're getting married, they're getting houses, they're, you know, and they're lifestyle people. And so all of a sudden style becomes everything, how they're managing their lives, how they're decorating, how they're cooking, how they're doing everything. So we've had to adapt, you know, the network slightly, but fundamentally we are a group of people that are passionate about fashion and beauty and style. And that is what we are. And we're very clear about it.
Yeah, and to just to quickly jump in on the question, you know, for us, we still see it as niche to a degree because we think food and travel go hand in hand very closely. It's not like we're doing food and karate, though those may go hand in hand as well. We haven't seen it yet, but if you've seen my 5-year-old eat and do karate, actually she could do it. She could be the channel. But we think that it still goes very closely hand in hand, as does lifestyle, and so. Our expansion into some of this other programming, the idea was that we didn't want to just dive in deep and say Tastemade's doing all this stuff. When we continue to have to be core to food and continue to grow an audience against food, and that's what we started the company on. But these other segments really do go hand in hand nicely with food. And so now as we start to expand our programming, it just makes sense to have travel and lifestyle be a part of it.
So JR, you're in some ways the oldest company here and the newest, you know,
wow.
in terms of
Thanks. Thank you, Matt.
What's that?
Thank you, Matt.
Well,
we're the AARP. That's it.
You're right. The most mature company in terms of having existed, but you know, just starting out. You are just entering the video phase of your company's business. So, and you have natural verticals: news, sports, entertainment.
Mhm.
Do you see, as you think of the video initiative that you're in charge of, do you think of it as one video initiative that you have to take care of everyone, or we need to focus on certain niches and really have that niche focus? And I know that's sort of like the easy answer is both, but tell me how you think, what you have to do, or do you only think about it as niches, or are you thinking about it as an entire video strategy?
Well, I mean, the latter part of the question is we have to have an entire video strategy. But to be honest with everyone in the room and everybody else, you know, there is a profile of brand by brand, the opportunity to grow, and you need to put priorities in order so you can actually be in this business of content creation. So all the brands do matter. Some have greater upsides and some have greater short-term opportunities. And I think that's what we have to do. I will say from a niche standpoint, you know, one of the things I'm most proud of Time Inc. is that we are basically, you know, an MVPD sitting inside a media house, right? I mean, you look at every brand we have, it sits pretty much inside a vertical that matters to most people in North America and most of the world. So I think, you know, what started cable companies, cable channels 25 years ago was the exact thing we're talking about today. Take a news broadcast that was 22 minutes long, break it out of news, weather, and sports, and all of a sudden you have ESPN, the Weather Channel, and Bravo, right? So whatever your kicker story was at the end. So at the end, niche is not new. It's just an evolution of what we really are. So verticals matter to us. I think we are trying to, where possible, cross-pollinate, as Oren was talking about. You know, if somebody comes to our food and wine or travel and leisure destinations, that doesn't mean that's the only kind of content they want to consume. That means their point of entry, whether that's front door or side door traffic, really doesn't matter to me. I want to expose them to our other brands so we widen our horizon. So do we want to cater to the verticals in which we're expert? Yes, but I don't want to shut people off from experiencing other content that our brands create or from third-party content we bring in. So I'll try to use those niches and verticals to expose people to other content to grow the audience, not just the vertical.
Brian, we know in television, for at least, you know, in the heyday of cable, verticals and niches and, you know, genres for channels were everything, and you owned it, and you won by that or lost by that. Where do you see vertical niches fitting in an on-demand, unlimited distribution world?
Well, as a company, I think that, you know, we think of ourselves or the importance of focus versus niche. You know, when I think of niches, those are the individual verticals or the individual areas that you choose to go after. I think that for us, one of the reasons that we're spending more time in sports is we just felt that it was important that as our business grew to be more focused, and that's been the result of that exercise. I think that you know, going back to our first discussion, niches really get narrower and narrower. I think that when you look at individual shows, they appeal to someone's taste, they appeal to their sensibility, they appeal to that thing that they're interested in that moment in time. And, you know, I remember when I first began to learn the YouTube platform and heard the term channel, I sort of, you know, thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. This is a show. This isn't a channel. This is a single video. This isn't a channel. And you begin to realize that when you're consuming video on new kinds of devices and new kinds of platforms in new ways, that the audience defines what a niche is or what a channel is. The creator doesn't. And, you know, I think that YouTube, in fact, was right, that for an individual at that moment in time, if, you know, iJustine is what they want to see, iJustine is the channel they want to go to get all iJustine all the time, and that's the way it gets defined. So, you know, I think that niches are more important than ever as navigational tools. I think that how many of those niches companies are able to effectively focus on, it really depends on the structure of the business. But, you know, I think that niches become programming strategy.
Stephanie, you said something interesting in your answer that I want to jump back to. You said, you know, our audience, you know, Ray, I don't know when she was, however old when she started.
Right.
It's 6 years later, and whatever is happening in her life now. So a question is, sort of as a company, because let's call it YouTube started and it was millennials or, you know, tweens and teens and early 20s at best, and as it's 6, 7 years later, do you age with them, or do you seek out the next Ray? And again, the answer is both, but MTV had made a decision at one point: we're not going to age with our audience, we'll let them graduate and they'll be the next generation that comes in. So how do you see that now that you're a few years old?
So even though we haven't said the dreaded M word, half of our audience is over the age of 24 as it stands today. So our audience is already aged.
That's old.
Ancient, I know. Ancient or it seems ancient for the YouTube platform. But really what it is it's just, as I said, it's more to his point about it's the viewer, right? So it's a community of people that are passionate about fashion and beauty or style. So if you are aging up in style now means what you're dressing your kid in, it's still a community that's passionate about fashion and beauty. So, I mean, are we going to change our brand? No, we're going to stay a brand for people that are passionate about fashion and beauty. Will we expand as everyone has to his point? Food starts to touch into travel. Style starts to touch into home. It starts to touch into moms. It starts to touch into all kinds of things because people's real lives start to touch into all kinds of things. But why is time cross-brand, using other brands to get across? Well, we're aggregating new audience with our mom. As our channels become moms, we're aggregating new audience. They're bringing new audience back. Moms that were going looking for content are now coming back and looking for style content. It's really a win for us. But as a core brand, you have to be passionate about style in order to want to be part of our community or want to watch our creators, period.
Okay. I'm going to open it up for questions in a moment, but I always like to, whenever I get to moderate one of these, I like to finish up with sort of like the McLaughlin group, sort of like speed thing at the end. Just ask a question, everyone answer like one word or one sentence. This isn't the time for long answers. So question number one: will there be another company that rivals you? And by the way, I'm not as old yet as John McLaughlin, but hopefully I'll summon some of his crustiness. Will there be another company that rivals YouTube as a self-service video platform, whether that be Vimeo, Facebook, Twitter, or some other? Yes or no? And if yes, which one? Stephanie?
I'm going to say no.
What's that?
I'm going to say no.
Okay. Warren?
I will say no, with the caveat that there will be other challengers that maybe don't do exactly what YouTube did, but will have tremendous value.
Okay. JR?
No, not like YouTube.
Yes.
Which one?
Oh.
See, it's a two-parter, Brian. It's a two-parter.
You said one word.
No,
okay.
I said one word, and I said, if yes, which one?
I think that what Facebook is doing in video is really interesting, and for people in the sports business, tremendously impactful. And I think that we're just at the beginning of what will be an interesting war between Facebook and YouTube.
And I'll just chap that caveat. If I were you, I'd watch Facebook and I'd watch Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay. The answer, because I get to decide. The answer is yes, and it's Facebook. What startup in this space, whether it be content, media, platform, or pure play tech company, do you think we'll be hearing a lot more over the next year? Let's start with you, Warren.
Maybe not so much a startup anymore, but Snapchat.
Okay. JR?
I'm actually gonna go to Amazon. Specifically, I think they're like the old phone companies. They're in everybody's house. I think Amazon.
Okay.
I agree with Amazon.
Ditto.
Wow. Okay. All right. There are lots of companies at the intersection of video and tech right now that are getting funding or being acquired at some pretty good valuation, Stephanie. Is there a danger of a bubble bursting? JR?
Because I'm not in that same piece of the business, but we look at a lot of deal flow. I don't necessarily worry about a bubble bursting. I always worry about valuation. But no, I don't think there's a bubble bursting because digital engagement can be differently defined than what we were going through as a bubble before.
Brian?
I think there are trends, always an investment. I think right now there's a lot of venture money chasing a small number of interesting businesses, which tends to increase pricing. So I think that over time those things rationalize as some succeed and some don't. So, I think that prices right now seem pretty fluffy.
That's a qualified yes. Stephanie?
I mean, I think he said it best. It's build versus buy, right? Like, you know, we in the MCN landscape, we all hit kind of an inflection point at about the same time where it was, gosh, do we raise heavy money and go after this on our own, or do we join bigger media companies, use all of their resources around the globe and get bigger with them because we have an expertise they don't have? And you can see that a lot of us decided that made a lot more sense, right? So is it a bubble per se? No, I think we hit an inflection point as businesses, and we made decisions with other people, other businesses like media companies that also hit an inflection point where they really did not have the digital landscape down and really required what we were doing. So, you know, I think you'll continue to see that pattern happen. I think it's no different than Facebook gobbling up different things. I don't get me wrong. Don't ever underestimate Zuck. You know, he took over mobile with one acquisition in Europe. So like, I don't want you to think I don't take Facebook very seriously. But as far as the bubble, no, I think it's just gonna be a question of whether or not businesses continue to hit those inflection points and if it's better to partner.
Okay. Last question. We'll start down the end with Brian. What day will it hit 50 degrees in New York City?
September 3rd.
Yeah. Anybody else want to chime in?
The day I leave. So
Right.
Today. Yeah.
All right, let's open up. We have about 5 minutes for questions. You've been the most patient person because you raised your hand an hour and 21 minutes ago. So there you go.
So not that patient.
Yeah, okay.
So I have a question about just your video in relation to the OTT world. I didn't hear much about Roku. Roku's doing quite a bit of stuff now. I mean, they're embedding Roku players in the third largest TV manufacturer in the world.
Yep.
And they're cut 2 or 3 more deals like that. And they have 15 million players, and there are thousands of channels, and the value that most people feel when they watch a Roku channel tends to be higher than when they watch a YouTube channel. Even though, by the way, most people don't know that the #1 viewed thing on Roku is actually YouTube, higher than Netflix or Amazon or anything else. So it says that when people want a higher value, they go to Roku. What's your feeling about your properties in a Roku world or in a world like that?
Yeah, I mentioned Roku earlier in just talking about the different platforms, and we do. Tastemade does have a Roku channel, and that's another one that we monitor. And there's totally different viewing habits there too. And that's actually a platform where we've experimented with some 22-minute programming as well. So if you take a show like Dave Gluttony, again, we've got the 10-minute version that we've done on YouTube, but we've also filmed the 22-minute version of that episode. And I think everything you said is correct. I think the engagement and the watch time on Roku is very high. I think the expectation for high-level quality is very high, and we think at least that the fact that people do watch a lot of our programming on Roku is a testament to the quality of the content we create. But no, I would agree 100% with what you said just about Roku in general and about the OTT world in general as well. There are other deals we're working on and we'll be announcing soon. And we think it's a huge opportunity out there.
Have you found that when you go to your advertisers or your brands that you say this and you show this in that type of environment, it's a different response than when you show it on the traditional social media,
Yeah,
It depends what they're looking for.
That's right. No, it depends on the brand, I think, is one. 2 is that at this stage, I think as you first launch a channel, it's more validation that there's this OTT channel and that it's Roku and that there's an audience. And then at the end of the day, typically with the brand, it's, well, what's your volume? Because if I'm going to invest in it, I want to make sure that it gets seen by the right eyeballs, you get the right number of impressions. So at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. But the direct answer is that there definitely is a positive response. We've seen a positive response to having that channel and having content on that channel.
Yes.
First, as an aside, I used to be John Robbins' channel years and years ago, so I can shout out, but I'll skip on questions. JR, question for you. On my panel yesterday, I had Jim Turner from NetUTV.
Sure.
You're working with them. How did you decide to work with them? Are you also looking to do similar things with other partners and that sort of stuff?
So if everyone knows what he's talking about, Net2TV is something. They have a service called Portico, which is a roll-up. They do some OTT business. They have one of the larger OEM deals, Samsung and others. So we decided to work with them on a non-exclusive basis because of the relationship. We like their product. They have one of the best products in Roku per the Roku businesses, so we like their business model. And the reality is we have a multitude of distribution partnerships. We have multiple channels on Roku. Net2TV is just another one, but we like their model and we like the way they do business with us, and we did it non-exclusively because we want to give it a shot, and it's worked out well.
Anyone else?
I would just say it's resources. Like we all, no matter whether you're JR and you have time behind you or you're us and you are a scrappy startup, we have to really decide where we're going to put our efforts. We can't be amazing on every platform, right? So with Samsung coming out with their own content play and Verizon coming out with their own content play, and I can keep going, right? I mean, we know that the cable companies are both coming out with their own content play. Like we just can't be everything to everyone. So we have to decide where we can be really good, and the same content doesn't belong on every platform. So if you're talking about derivative works from, for example, Style Hall's content, where does that go? Where's the best platform for it? What can it be? And we just can't be everything to everyone, and we can't do really well on every platform. So I think you'd see the 4 people on this panel all give you totally different answers about where we belong.
Yes, this gentleman right here. Yep.
When you're talking about the things you're kind of in video, I know people are calling that entertainment, so they're using it similar to their publishing brand, building a video platform, and you have a daily cut, and they want something that's seen. And then in January, they acquired a few Sundance shorts to put on their platform. So what are your thoughts on, acquiring that kind of indie film content and mixing it into their publishing brand content? And do you have any thoughts about doing that?
Yeah. Well, I won't make any comment on Condi specifically. We just don't do that. I will just say that I think it goes back to everything everyone said here. I will answer you directly on that. I believe in acquiring content as long as I have an experience that I'm trying to build for a specific consumer, right? So I'm not just trying to throw things against the wall. I'm trying to build specific experiences. I think Stephanie said, inch wide, mile deep. I need to engage consumers over and over and over. I can't just do that with a handful of content. I need to have a quality volume basis, and I'm not going to produce it all myself. So I'm 100% in favor of acquiring content. We have a shingle called Red Border Films that we launched under Time a year and a half ago. We produced shorts and documentaries there, but we'll also bring content in from third parties. So I'm in favor of bringing it in where it makes sense. If I have a specific audience we're trying to solve for and an experience we're trying to build, but I'm not just going to bring in one-offs and throw them up with no experience or no playlist, because then I basically put someone in a dead end.
Okay, have time for 1 or 2 more. Yeah.
So what are the platforms that get you 80% of these views? Or what are the top 3 platforms you have to be on?
YouTube and Facebook are top 2 for us.
You got to be on Instagram too.
Yeah, and I'm going to say Amazon is going to be there inside a year.
I agree completely.
I agree with YouTube and Facebook.
Come on, you got to agree with Amazon.
And Amazon.
See, he agrees with all 3. Brian's in on all 3.
Depends. I think Amazon for longer form programming. I think Amazon as more of a Netflix kind of experience. I think that they're going to experiment with shorter form, but I don't think that they're in the short term going to be a serious player there.
Without giving my whole theory on Amazon, I think you got to think about people's consumption habits. So if everybody in this room reads reviews on Amazon, but all the people we're talking about and working with are people that consume video, what's coming next for them as they get older? And I think that's how you got to think about that platform.
What'd you say, Stephanie? What's coming next?
What's coming next for them as they get older? They consume video. That's the way that they consume content, right? And you know that it's enormous. Look at the numbers. So if they do that, where are they consuming video next, and how, and for what reason? And I think that's where you're going to find the next play.
Okay. Last question.
When you say Amazon, what do you mean? The Amazon on boxes, or do you mean Amazon?
I'm guessing that we mean the same thing, and we on the panel probably all mean differently, but I'm saying to you, without giving you my whole theory on Amazon, I would think about consumption habits. So if what millennials do is consume video for their information, then I would think about as they get older, what do they need to do, right? I go to Amazon, I read reviews of everything before I buy it. But more youthful people are consuming video all the time for everything they're doing, which means they're going to continue to consume video as they get older. And so I think you should think about what other platforms and what other needs they'll have as they age up.
I also think it depends on, as we've talked about all afternoon, what type of platform it is. I think that, for mobile first content, sort of short form content, I think it's going to be a while before Amazon becomes the go-to place. I think that for longer form content, Amazon is going to be very significant very quickly. I think that short form content, though, is a new kind of content consumption experience. It was pioneered by YouTube, is now being advanced by Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, other platforms like that. I think it's a very different kind of experience.
But if I'm doing a review of a product, or Time's giving you a review of a book, you can watch that in video, right? And Amazon's the largest commerce platform. So I think it depends on whether we're not talking about entertainment content or resource-based content.
All right. Our time in Prague is up. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone on the panel.
Time in Prague.
Time in Prague.
Let's get the choice.
Really good job.